Clara Whitmore stood on that Kansas platform, watching her future walk
I wish
away.
you weren't leaving.
42 years old, rejected at the station like damaged
I'll miss
goods.
you more than anything.
Too old, they'd said. Too worn. Too late. But when the tall rancher by the fence whispered, "Then just be mine," everything she thought she knew about her worthless life shattered. Before we begin, please subscribe and stay until the end of this story. Comment which city you're watching from. I want to see how far Clara's journey travels. The telegram had been simple. Seeking wife. Hard-working rancher. Wyoming. Will treat you well. Thomas Burroughs. Clara had answered it in desperation, her fingers cramping around the pencil in that Boston boarding house. 42. No family. No prospects. The other seamstresses whispered she'd die alone. She'd answered anyway. Now she stood on the platform, navy dress, clinging to her back, suitcase handle cutting into her palm. The crowd parted around her like water around a stone. "Mrs. Whitmore." Clara turned. A young man, 30, maybe sandy hair, nervous eyes. Thomas. Behind him, a woman in black silk despite the heat. Iron gray hair pulled tight enough to stretch skin. The woman looked Clara up and down. "Thomas." Her voice could freeze summer. "This cannot be her. Mother, please. Look at her." Clara's stomach dropped. She straightened anyway. "Mrs. Burroughs, I presume. The agency promised suitable women." The older woman spoke only to Thomas as if Clara had ceased to exist. "She's old enough to be—" "I'm 42, Clara said. "I stated my age in every letter. My son needs a wife who can bear him children, strong sons." Mrs. Burroughs waved dismissively. "Not some leftover spinster." The words hit like fists. Clara had heard worse years of worse, but something about this public humiliation here in front of gawking strangers made her vision blur. "Mother, that's enough." Thomas's voice cracked. "Is it? Look around. Look at the other men with their brides." Clara looked. Couldn't help it. 3 other mail-order brides, all young, none older than 25, being embraced by eager grooms, being welcomed home, being wanted. "We're sending her back," Mrs. Burroughs announced. "Today, 4 o'clock train." "Wait." Clara's voice came out smaller than intended. "Mr. Burroughs, we've been corresponding for 3 months. You said—" "I know what I said." Thomas wouldn't look at her. His jaw worked. "But I didn't realize what, that I'd look my age?" Her hands tightened on the suitcase. "I never lied. Not once. The agency should have been more clear about suitability." Mrs. Burroughs sniffed. "Thomas needs a proper wife, not a charity case." Clara's chest cracked. She'd crossed half a continent on the promise of dignity. "Please." The desperation in her voice made her hate herself. "I'm a hard worker. I can cook, manage a household. I don't need luxuries. I just need—" "What you need is to understand your position." Mrs. Burroughs cut her off. "My son will marry appropriately, not out of pity." Thomas finally met Clara's eyes. What she saw there wasn't cruelty. It was weakness. A man trapped between his mother's will and his own spine. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I just can't." The platform tilted. Clara grabbed the bench to stay upright. "The buggy's waiting," Mrs. Burroughs said. "Thomas, we're leaving." "But her ticket." "The agency will handle it." Clara watched them walk away. Thomas glanced back, once face miserable, but kept walking. The black buggy rolled out, dust rising like smoke. The platform emptied fast. Grooms and brides scattered. Life moved forward for everyone except Clara, frozen beside a bench with a suitcase that suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. A station attendant approached. "Ma'am, you need help." "The 4 o'clock train east, is that right?" "Yes, ma'am. 2 hours." He hesitated. "You got somewhere to wait?" "I'm fine here." He left. She sat. Around her normal life, continued merchants shouting horses, passing children laughing somewhere. The world kept turning while hers stopped. She'd been a fool. A desperate, pathetic fool who'd believed a stranger's letters over a lifetime of evidence. Too old. Too plain. Too late. She pressed her palms against her eyes. She wouldn't cry in public. She'd cried enough in private in Boston boarding houses, while younger seamstresses gossiped on the train west when hope had felt dangerous. She wouldn't cry here. But God, it hurt. "Ma'am?" The voice was deeper than Thomas's. Rougher. Clara looked up. A tall man stood a few feet away, hat in hands. Older than Thomas, early 40s maybe, with sun-weathered skin and dark hair silvering at the temples, ranch clothes dusty from travel, gray eyes that didn't judge. "I don't mean to intrude," he said quietly, "but you look like you could use a hand." Clara's laugh came out bitter. "I'm used to standing alone." He studied her, not the way Mrs. Burroughs had, not with judgment, something gentler. "Maybe," he said, "but no one should have to." The kindness in his voice broke something in her. Her vision blurred. "I'm fine." She wiped her eyes fast. "Just waiting for the next train." "Where are you headed?" "Boston, or anywhere east." He nodded slowly, then surprised her by sitting on the far end of the bench, not too close, respectful. "I'm Samuel," he said. "Samuel Hargrove. Clara Whitmore. You came on the bride train." Her face burned. "News travels fast. Small town." He turned his hat. "I saw what happened, with Burroughs and his mother. You saw me get rejected like spoiled meat. I saw a cruel woman say cruel things to someone who didn't deserve them." Clara looked at him sharply. His expression was serious, honest. "Mrs. Burroughs was right about one thing," Clara said. "I am too old for this. I don't know what I was thinking coming out here. Thinking some stranger would actually want—" She stopped. "I should have stayed in Boston." "Why didn't you—" "Because Boston didn't want me either." The words came out raw. 42 years old, working in a factory, living in a boarding house with women half my age who all have futures. I thought maybe out west things would be different. That maybe someone would see past. She gestured vaguely. Past all this. What do you see when you look at yourself? Someone past her prime. Someone who waited too long. Someone the world decided has no value. That's what other people told you to see? It's what I am. No. His voice was firm. It's what you've been made to believe. Clara wanted to argue, but exhaustion swamped her. This kind stranger would go home to his life, and she'd board that train and disappear. "You got family in Boston?" Samuel asked. "No." "Job waiting?" "The factory won't take me back. I gave up my position." "So you're going back to nothing?" Clara's throat tightened. "At least it's familiar." Samuel turned his hat another rotation. "I got a ranch 8 miles north. Small operation, just me and 2 hired hands." "That's nice for you." "I'm saying if you need a place to stay, just for tonight, while you figure things out." He paused. "There's a spare room, been empty for years." Clara stared. "You're inviting a strange woman to your ranch." "I'm offering help to someone who needs it." "You don't know me. I know you've had a rough day. I know you're alone." He met her eyes. "I know what it feels like to have nowhere to go." Something in his voice suggested pain. Clara's instinct, honed through years of watching surviving, told her he meant it. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you help me?" Samuel was quiet. Then, "My wife died 8 years ago. Sarah. Fever took her sudden one day, laughing next day gone." His hands tightened on his hat. "After the funeral, people left. And I was alone in that house with all her things and all that silence." He looked at Clara. "I remember sitting on my porch that first night thinking nobody should feel that alone. That if I ever saw someone drowning in that same silence, I'd throw them a rope." Clara's eyes stung. "I'm not your charity case. No, You're someone who deserves better than you got today. The 4 o'clock train whistle sounded. Decision time. Clara looked at her suitcase, at the nothing waiting ahead. Then at this weathered rancher with sad eyes and an honest face. "One night," she said. "Just until I figure out where to go. One night." He stood, offered his hand. Clara took it. His palm was calloused, warm, steady. They walked to where his horse stood, tied a sturdy bay mare. "She's gentle," Samuel said. "Been riding her 12 years. He helped Clara into the saddle, then swung up behind her. His arms came around to hold the reins, careful not to touch more than necessary. "Hold on." They rode north. Clara watched the town disappear, watched empty grassland spread out, and felt something strange in her chest. Not hope, she'd buried hope on that platform, but space, room to breathe. "Sarah used to say the sky was bigger out here," Samuel said. Said it made her feel like she could breathe deeper. "How long were you married?" 12 years. Best years of my life." "You must miss her." "Every day." His voice roughened. "But grief don't mean you stop living. Just means you carry someone with you while you keep walking." Clara thought about that. Carrying pain, walking anyway. "The Burroughs boy was a fool," Samuel said suddenly. Clara stiffened. "You don't have to." "Any man who'd let his mother decide his future like that ain't worth mourning." He was scared. Scared's not an excuse for cruelty. "She said I was too old." She was wrong. I am too old. For childbearing, for what? For being valued, for deserving kindness. He shook his head. That woman's poison. And poison don't become truth just because she said it loud. Tears threatened. "Everyone thinks it. That women my age are used up, worthless." "Then everyone's a fool." "You're very kind to lie." "I ain't lying." His voice intensified. "You want to know what I see? I see someone who had the courage to cross a continent alone. Someone who held her head up when that woman tried to break her. Someone still standing after the world told her to fall." He paused. "That ain't worthless. That's steel." She couldn't speak. Nobody had ever. The ranch appeared over a rise, small but maintained house, barn, corral, outbuildings. Chickens in the yard. A dog barked. "Home," Samuel said. He helped Clara down, led the horse to the barn. The dog-old shepherd mix sniffed Clara before accepting her. "That's Scout," Samuel called. "He's harmless." Clara reached down. Scout licked her hand, tail wagging. Samuel emerged, wiping his hands. "You hungry? I was about to make supper." "I don't want to impose, Clara." He said her name gently. "You're a guest. Guests eat." Inside the house was spare but clean. Main room with fireplace, kitchen, stairs. Nothing decorative except one framed photograph on the mantel, a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile. Sarah. "She was beautiful," Clara said softly. Samuel looked at the photograph with naked grief. "She was everything." He cleared his throat. "Your room's upstairs. First door on the right. Basin if you want to wash up. Supper in 30 minutes. Clara climbed the stairs, legs heavy. The room was small, iron bed with quilt dresser, window. Simple. Safe. She sat on the bed and let herself cry. Quiet tears of relief and confusion and something unnamed. Downstairs, she heard him in the kitchen. Dishes clinking. Coffee smell. Samuel Hargrove was a stranger, but he'd shown her more kindness in an hour than Thomas had in 3 months. She washed her face, smoothed her dress, went back down. Samuel had set 2 plates. Beans, bread, coffee. Nothing fancy, but it smelled good. "Sit," he said. "Please." They ate in silence for a few minutes. "Thank you," Clara said finally. "You didn't have to." "Stop thanking me." "But," Clara. Samuel set down his cup. "I didn't do this for gratitude. I did it because it was right." He paused. "And because I know what it's like to feel invisible. But you have all this." "After Sarah died, people stopped seeing me. They saw the widower, the sad man, the one to pity." His jaw tightened. They stopped seeing Samuel, just saw the grief. People stop seeing us, Clara said quietly. They just see what we lack. Exactly. They looked at each other across that table, two people the world had overlooked, and something passed between them. Understanding, recognition. What will you do? Samuel asked. Tomorrow. I don't know. Go back east, I suppose. Try to find work. Sewing laundry. Someone will need hands. You want to go back? I don't have anywhere else. You could stay. The words hung there. Clara's heart stuttered. Stay. His face reddened. Just until you figure things out. The room's empty. And I could use help. Someone to manage the house, help with books. Can't pay much but room and board and a small wage. You're offering me employment. I'm offering you time. Time to breathe. Time to decide what you actually want instead of running back to what's familiar. Clara's hands shook. Why would you do that? Because you survived 42 years in a world that tried to break you. Because you had courage to try for something better. His voice softened. Because you deserve better than what you got today. Samuel. Just think about it. He stood collecting dishes. You're exhausted. Get some sleep. We can talk in the morning. Clara climbed the stairs. In the small room, she unpacked 3 dresses, a Bible, a photograph. Such a small life. But maybe not over yet. She lay in darkness listening. Samuel downstairs, Scout's nails on wood, wind in the eaves, different sounds than the boarding house, different than the factory, gentler. Tomorrow she'd decide. Go back to familiar nothing, or stay with a kind stranger and the terrifying possibility of something new. Clara pressed her hand to her chest, feeling her heartbeat. Maybe, she whispered, maybe I could stay. She closed her eyes. Sleep came slowly. Then, a sound downstairs. Sharp. Glass breaking. Clara sat up, heart pounding. Voices. Samuel's tight, angry. Another voice, male, slurred. Told you she'd come eventually. Get out of my house. Your house. That's rich, Sam. After what you did, I said get out. I saw her. The old bride. Word travels fast. A laugh. Mean. She know yet about Sarah. About what really happened that night. Silence. Didn't think so. The voice dropped. You got 3 days, Sam. 3 days to pay what you owe, or everyone in town hears the truth. And I wonder, will your new lady friend stay when she knows what kind of man you really are? A door slammed. Footsteps. Heavy. Retreating. Then silence. Clara sat frozen in the dark, her hand pressed to her mouth. What really happened that night? What kind of man you really are? Below her she heard Samuel moving, a chair scraping, the sound of someone sitting down hard. Then, barely audible through the floorboards, a sound that chilled her. Samuel Hargrove was crying, and Clara Whitmore, who'd thought she'd finally found safety, realized she'd walked into something far more dangerous than loneliness. She'd walked into someone else's secrets. Clara didn't sleep after that. She lay in the dark listening to Samuel move around downstairs, the scrape of a chair, the clink of a bottle, the heavy silence of a man wrestling with things he couldn't say out loud. Every creak of the floorboards made her flinch. Every shadow on the wall looked like a threat. What really happened that night? The stranger's words circled in her head like vultures. She'd come here desperate, and desperation made people stupid, made them trust too fast, made them ignore warning signs because the alternative was going back to nothing. But what if nothing was safer than this? When dawn finally broke, Clara's eyes were gritty with exhaustion. She heard Samuel moving in the kitchen, the pump working, the stove being lit. The ordinary sounds of morning that felt anything but ordinary now. She should leave. Pack her suitcase, walk back to town, take the next train east. It didn't matter where. Anywhere was better than staying in a house full of secrets with a man who cried alone in the dark. But when she stood up, her legs shook. Not from fear, from something worse. From the memory of his voice saying, "You deserve better than what you got today." From the way he'd looked at her like she was still worth seeing. From the terrifying realization that she didn't want to leave. Clara dressed slowly, hands fumbling with buttons. She braided her hair, pinned it up, stared at herself in the small mirror. 42 years old. Too old to be this foolish. Too old to believe in kindness without cost. But not old enough to stop hoping. She went downstairs. Samuel stood at the stove, his back to her. He'd changed clothes, fresh shirt hair still damp from washing. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "Coffee's ready," he said without turning around. His voice was rough, used up. "Thank you." Clara poured herself a cup, her hands steady despite the tremor in her chest. She sat at the table and waited. Samuel brought over 2 plates, eggs, bread, nothing fancy, and sat across from her. His eyes were red-rimmed, haunted. They ate in silence for a minute. Then Clara set down her fork. "I heard voices last night," she said quietly. Samuel's jaw tightened. He didn't look up. "I figured you might have. Who was he?" "Nobody you need to worry about." "Samuel." "I said it's handled." His voice came out harder than he probably intended. He closed his eyes, took a breath. "I'm sorry." I'm sorry." Clara's instinct screamed at her to push, to demand answers, to protect herself. But something in his face stopped her. The same thing she saw in her own mirror every morning, someone carrying weight they didn't know how to set down. "I should go," she said instead. "Back to town. Catch the next train." Samuel's head snapped up. "Because of last night. Because I don't know you. Because you don't know me. Because this—" She gestured between them. "This was a mistake." "Was it?" "You took in a stranger. I accepted help from a stranger. That's not— people don't just do that. There's always a cost." "What if there isn't?" "There always is." Clara's voice cracked. "I've lived long enough to know that kindness isn't free. Someone always wants something eventually." Samuel set down his fork carefully. "What do you think I want from you, Clara?" "I don't know. That's the problem." "You think I brought you here to what hurt you, use you?" "I don't know what to think." She stood up, her chair scraping loud in the quiet kitchen. "I heard what that man said. About Sarah. About what really happened. About you owing—" "Stop!" Samuel's voice went flat. "Just stop. If you're in trouble, if there's something I should know, there's nothing you need to know except this." He stood too, his hands gripping the edge of the table. "I offered you help because I meant it. Because I saw someone who needed it, and I had the means to give it. That's all. No cost, no expectation, no debt." Then what was he talking about? "My business, not yours." The words hung between them like a slap. Clara felt heat rise in her face, shame and anger mixing into something bitter. "You're right," she said quietly. "It's not my business. I'm just the charity case you picked up at the station, the old mail-order bride nobody wanted." She walked toward the stairs. "I'll pack my things." "Clara. Thank you for your hospitality, Mr. Hargrove. I'll be out of your way within the hour." She climbed the stairs before he could respond, before the tears could start, before she could see whatever expression was on his face. In the small room, she grabbed her suitcase and started throwing things in dresses, Bible photograph, her hands shaking with humiliation. Stupid. So stupid. She'd let herself believe for one night that maybe things could be different, that maybe someone could want to help without strings attached, that maybe— A knock at the door. "Clara." Samuel's voice was muffled through the wood. "Can I come in?" "I'm packing." "I know. Can I come in anyway?" She didn't answer. After a moment, the door opened slowly. Samuel stood in the doorway, his hat in his hands, his face raw with something that looked like pain. "I'm not good at this," he said quietly. "Talking. explaining. Sarah used to say I kept everything locked up so tight I'd choke on it eventually. He turned his hat. She was right. Clara kept packing. You don't owe me explanations. Maybe not, but you deserve them anyway. He took a breath. The man last night, his name's Cole Garrett. We grew up together. Used to be friends before. He stopped. Before Sarah died. Clara's hand stilled on the suitcase. After she passed, I wasn't right in the head for a while, Samuel continued. Couldn't work. Couldn't think. Couldn't function. The ranch started falling apart. I had debts piling up, doctor bills, funeral costs, loan payments I couldn't make. His voice went rough. Cole offered to help. Said he'd front me the money to keep the place running until I got back on my feet. Said we were friends. That's what friends do. But there was a cost, Clara said quietly. There's always a cost. Samuel's mouth twisted bitterly. He wanted a cut of the ranch. Said it was fair he was taking a risk, he should get something for it. I was too broken to argue, too desperate. So I signed papers I shouldn't have signed, agreed to terms I didn't read properly. How much do you owe him? More than I can pay, and he knows it. Samuel's hands tightened on his hat. He's been waiting for me to default, waiting for an excuse to take what he really wants. The ranch, the land, everything Sarah and I built together. His voice cracked. It's all I have left of her, the only thing that matters, and I'm about to lose it because I was too weak to... He stopped, his jaw working. Clara closed her suitcase slowly. What did he mean about Sarah? About what really happened? Samuel went very still. You don't want to know. I think I do. Clara. If I'm going to leave, I'd rather leave knowing the truth than spend the rest of my life wondering what kind of man I almost trusted. The words came out harsher than she meant them. Samuel flinched like she'd struck him. Fine, he said flatly. You want the truth? Here it is. He met her eyes. Sarah died because of me, because I wasn't here when she needed me, because I was too busy working, too focused on making this place profitable, too stupid to see that she was getting sick. That's not... I was in town when it happened. He continued, his voice mechanical. Buying supplies. She'd been feeling poorly all week, but said it was nothing, just a cold. Told me to go, that she'd be fine. So, I went. His hands shook. By the time I got back, she was burning with fever. Delirious. I rode for the doctor, but it was too late. She died that night in my arms, calling for her mother, begging me to make it stop hurting. Tears ran down his face, but he didn't seem to notice. Cole says he tells people I killed her. That if I'd been a better husband, a more attentive man, I would have gotten the doctor sooner. That her death is on my hands. He laughed bitterly. And he's right, it is. Every day I wake up knowing I failed her. That she died alone and scared because I wasn't there. Clara's chest ached. Samuel. So that's the truth, he said. That's what kind of man I am. The kind who lets his wife die. The kind who's about to lose everything she loved because he was too weak to keep it together after. He looked at her, his face devastated. Now you know. You can go. He turned toward the door. Wait, Clara said. He stopped, but didn't turn around. Clara's hands trembled. Every instinct screamed at her to grab her suitcase and run. This man was drowning in debt and guilt and secrets. Getting involved would be insane, would be dangerous, would be... How long do you have, she asked, before Cole takes the ranch? Samuel's shoulders slumped. 3 days. He wants $2,000. I have maybe $300. What happens if you can't pay? He forecloses, takes the land, everything. His voice went hollow. And I have to watch someone else live in the house Sarah loved. Watch them tear down what we built. Watch her memory get erased like she never existed. Clara stared at his back, at the defeat in his shoulders, at the way he held himself like a man already broken. She thought about Thomas walking away from her on that platform because his mother told him to. She thought about every man she'd ever known who'd chosen the easy path over the hard one, who'd chosen comfort over courage. Samuel Hargrove was drowning, and he'd used the last of his strength to throw her a rope anyway. "I have money," Clara heard herself say. Samuel turned. "What?" "I have money. Not much, about $800. I've been saving for 20 years. It was supposed to be for—" She swallowed. "For my old age. For when I couldn't work anymore. It's hidden in the lining of my suitcase." He stared at her. "Clara, I can't—" "You can't pay Cole with it, I know. But maybe it's enough to buy you time, to negotiate, to figure out another option." "Why would you—" "I just told you. I heard what you told me." Clara's voice steadied. "You told me you blame yourself for something that wasn't your fault. You told me you're trying to honor your wife's memory the only way you know how. You told me you're scared and desperate and human." She met his eyes. "None of that makes you a bad man, Samuel. It makes you a grieving one. You don't understand. I understand more than you think." She opened her suitcase, pulled out the false bottom, and removed a small cloth bag. "I understand what it's like to lose everything. To feel like you failed. To think you don't deserve another chance." She held out the bag. "Take it, please." Samuel looked at the bag like it might burn him. "I can't take your life savings. It's not doing me any good in a suitcase." Clara's voice cracked. "And I don't want to go back east, Samuel. I don't want to go back to nothing. I want—" She stopped, her face burning. "I want to stay, just for a little while, until I figure things out." "Clara. So take the money, use it to buy yourself time, and let me stay here and earn it back by working. Fair trade, no charity, no debt." She pushed the bag toward him. "Please." Samuel's hands shook as he took the bag. He opened it, looked inside, and closed his eyes. "This is Clara. This is everything you have." "I know. If I lose the ranch anyway, if Cole takes it all, you'll have nothing. You'll be back where you started." "Then I'll be back where I started." Clara lifted her chin. "But at least I'll know I tried to help someone who helped me. That's more than I could say yesterday." They looked at each other across that small room, two broken people making a desperate bargain, and something shifted. Some wall between them cracked. "I'll pay you back," Samuel said hoarsely. "Every cent, I swear it. I know you will. I'll work day and night. Samuel." Clara's voice gentled. "Just say thank you." He laughed, the sound wet and broken. "Thank you." "You're welcome." He left before she could see him cry again. Clara stood alone in the small room, staring at her empty suitcase, wondering if she'd just made the smartest decision of her life or the stupidest. Downstairs, she heard Samuel moving around. The sound of him washing his face. The sound of him pulling himself together. Clara unpacked her suitcase again, this time, not in desperation, but in something that felt almost like hope. She smoothed her dresses, arranged her few belongings, and looked around the small room that might be home for a while longer. Then she went downstairs to face whatever came next. Samuel stood at the kitchen window, his back straight, his shoulders squared. He'd wiped his face clean, put his armor back on. When he turned to her, his eyes were clear. "I'm riding into town," he said, "to talk to Cole. See if your money's enough to buy me an extension. You'll be all right here alone." "I've been alone before." "Scout's outside if you need him. There's food in the pantry. Chickens need feeding around noon coops behind the barn." He grabbed his hat. "I'll be back before dark." "Samuel." He stopped. "Be careful," Clara said quietly. "Men like Cole, they don't like losing." "I know." His mouth quirked. "But today, he doesn't get to win. Not completely." He left. Clara watched through the window as he saddled his horse and rode north toward town. His back straight, his head high, a man riding into battle with borrowed courage and a desperate plan. She stood there long after he disappeared, her hand pressed to her chest, feeling her heart beat hard against her ribs. Then she rolled up her sleeves and got to work. The house was clean but neglected in the way of a place where someone lived but didn't quite inhabit. Dust in the corners, dishes stacked carelessly, windows that hadn't been properly washed in years. Sarah's photograph on the mantel, watching everything with kind eyes. Clara started with the kitchen, scrubbed the stove, swept the floor, washed every dish and put them away neatly. She found flour and sugar in the pantry basic supplies and started bread dough rising. Fed the chickens like Samuel had said. Let Scout follow her around his tail, wagging cautiously. She worked until her hands ached and her back protested, and somewhere in the rhythm of scrubbing and sweeping, she felt something loosen in her chest. Some knot of fear and shame that had lived there so long she'd forgotten it wasn't supposed to be permanent. This house needed her. Samuel needed her. And maybe, just maybe, she needed them too. By the time the sun started sinking, Clara had the kitchen gleaming, bread baking, and coffee ready. She stood on the porch watching the horizon, her hands wrapped around a cup, her heart in her throat. He'd be back. He had to come back. But what if Cole had done something? What if hoofbeats? Clara's head snapped up. Samuel appeared over the rise riding hard, his face unreadable in the fading light. She set down her cup and walked to meet him. He dismounted fast, his movements sharp. His face was tight. Angry. "What happened?" Clara asked. "He took the money," Samuel said flatly. "Gave me 2 weeks. Said if I don't have the rest by then, he's taking the ranch and keeping what you gave him as a down payment." Clara's stomach dropped. "He can't." "He can. He showed me the papers, the terms I signed." Samuel's jaw worked. "I was so stupid, so desperate. I signed away." He stopped. 2 weeks, Clara. I need $1,700 more in 2 weeks or we lose everything. We'll figure it out." "How?" His voice cracked. "I can't earn that kind of money in 2 weeks. The cattle aren't ready for sale. The harvest won't come in until—" He stopped, his hands shaking. "I can't lose this place. I can't let him win." Clara stepped forward and did something she'd never done before. She reached out and took his hand. His fingers were cold, trembling. "Then we don't let him win," she said firmly. "We fight." "With what?" "With everything we have." She squeezed his hand. "You're not alone anymore, Samuel. You hear me? Whatever comes next, you're not facing it alone." He looked at her, his eyes devastated and grateful and terrified all at once. "Why are you doing this?" he whispered. "Why do you care?" Clara thought about Thomas walking away, about Mrs. Burroughs calling her worthless, about 42 years of being invisible. "Because yesterday someone saw me when I was drowning," she said quietly. "And today it's my turn to see you." Samuel's face crumpled. He pulled her into a fierce hug, desperate and grateful, and nothing like romance. Just two people clinging to each other in the gathering dark. Two people who'd been alone too long. Two people trying to believe they deserved to be saved. "Thank you," he whispered into her hair. "Thank you." Clara held him tighter and whispered back, "We're going to be okay. I promise." She had no idea if that was true. But standing there in his arms, feeling his heart beat against hers, she decided it didn't matter. They'd figure it out together. Or they'd drown together. Either way, neither of them would be alone. They pulled apart slowly, the weight of what they'd just promised settling between them like stone. Samuel wiped his face with the back of his hand, not quite meeting her eyes. "You should eat," Clara said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I made bread." "You made—" He looked toward the house, noticing for the first time the golden light spilling from the windows, the smell of yeast and warmth. "Clara, you didn't have to." "I know." She turned toward the porch. "Come on, before it gets cold." Inside, Samuel stopped in the doorway. The kitchen gleamed. The table was set. Fresh bread sat cooling on a cloth, and coffee steamed in cups she'd found and washed. "You cleaned," he said quietly. "I worked, like we agreed." Clara pulled out a chair. "Sit." He sat, his movement slow, like a man in a dream. Clara cut thick slices of bread, spread them with butter from the cold box, and set one in front of him. She poured coffee and sat across from him, her own hands wrapped around her cup. Samuel took a bite, closed his eyes. "It's good," he said hoarsely. "It's Sarah used to make bread like this. I can make something else if—" "No." He opened his eyes. "No, it's perfect. Thank you." They ate in silence for a while. The kind of silence that came after tears, after confessions, after promises made in desperation. Clara watched him eat, watched the tension in his shoulders ease slightly with each bite, watched him come back to himself. "We need a plan," she said finally. Samuel set down his bread. "I've been thinking about that, all the way back from town." He rubbed his face. "The cattle aren't ready, but maybe I could sell them anyway. Take a loss, but at least get something." "How much would that bring?" "Maybe 500, if I'm lucky. And then I'd have nothing left to rebuild with." His voice went bitter. "Cole knows that. He's counting on it. Wants me desperate enough to just hand over the deed and walk away." "So we don't do that." "Clara, there's no other way to get that kind of money in 2 weeks." "Then we don't get it in 2 weeks." She leaned forward. "We buy more time." "How?" "You said Cole wants this ranch, wants the land." Clara's mind raced. Men like that, they don't just want to win. They want to be seen winning, to prove they're better, smarter, more powerful. So we make him think he's already won. Make him confident. Overconfident. She met Samuel's eyes. "And while he's gloating, we find a way to pull the rug out from under him." Samuel stared at her. "You want to con Cole Garrett. I want to buy you time to find real money, to come up with a real solution." Clara's voice steadied. "But if he thinks you're beaten, he'll wait. He'll drag it out. Enjoy watching you squirm." "That's dangerous." "Everything about this is dangerous." She leaned back. "Question is, are you willing to fight dirty, or are you just going to hand him everything Sarah loved?" Samuel's jaw tightened. Something shifted in his eyes, anger replacing despair, fire replacing ash. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. Clara smiled. "Tell me everything you know about Cole Garrett, his weaknesses, his pride, what he wants more than this land." Samuel thought for a moment. "Respect. He's always wanted respect. Growing up, people saw him as less than. His father was the town drunk. His mother took in washing. Cole grew up wearing hand-me-downs and working odd jobs while the rest of us—" He stopped. "While the rest of us had it easier. And now he owns half the businesses in town, lends money to people who can't get it anywhere else, charges interest that should be criminal." Samuel's voice hardened. "He wants people to need him, to bow and scrape and beg." "What does he do with his money?" "Hoards it mostly, but he likes—" Samuel paused. "He likes to be seen as cultured, sophisticated. He collects things, art books, anything that makes him look refined." Clara's mind clicked pieces into place. "Does he gamble?" "Used to. High-stakes poker games in the back room of the saloon." "Why?" "Because men who gamble have tells, have weaknesses." She drummed her fingers on the table. "And men who crave respect are easy to manipulate if you know what buttons to push." Samuel looked at her with something close to wonder. Where did you learn to think like this? Boston. Clara's mouth twisted. When you're invisible, you learn to watch people, to see how they work, to survive by understanding what they want before they know they want it. She met his eyes. I've spent 20 years watching powerful people step on the powerless. You learn things. We're really going to do this. Do you have a better idea? Samuel was quiet for a long moment. Then he started laughing low and slightly unhinged, the sound of a man who'd lost so much he had nothing left to lose. No, he said. No, I really don't. He reached across the table and grabbed her hand. Okay, we fight dirty. They spent the next 2 hours planning. Clara asked questions. Samuel filled in details, and slowly a picture emerged of Cole Garrett, a man driven by old wounds and new greed, a man who'd clawed his way up from nothing and would do anything to stay on top. He'll come here, Samuel said. In a few days. He always does when he knows people are struggling, likes to see the fear in their eyes. Good. Clara's voice went cold. Let him come. Let him think he's won. And then we give him exactly what he wants. His ego stroked his power, acknowledged his victory assured. She smiled grimly. And while he's basking in it, we'll be finding another way out. Samuel looked at her across the table. This woman he'd known for less than 2 days. This woman who'd given him everything she had. This woman who was now plotting with him like they'd been partners for years. Clara Whitmore, he said softly. You're full of surprises. I've had to be. She squeezed his hand. Women like me don't survive by being simple. They finished their coffee in companionable silence. Outside, full dark had fallen. Scout scratched at the door and Samuel let him in. The dog settled by the fireplace with a contented sigh. You should rest, Samuel said. It's been a long day. So should you. I will, soon. He looked at Sarah's photograph on the mantel, his expression complicated. I need a minute. Clara understood. She climbed the stairs, leaving him alone with his ghosts. In her room, she lay in the dark, listening to the house settle. She'd gambled everything today, her savings, her safety, her future on a man she barely knew, and a plan that might not work. But lying there, feeling the honest exhaustion in her bones, Clara realized she didn't regret it. For the first time in decades, she'd chosen something. Not accepted what was given, not settled for what was left, but actively chosen to fight for something that mattered. It felt terrifying. It felt right. She fell asleep, planning. The next morning, Clara woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee already brewing. She dressed quickly and found Samuel in the kitchen looking less haunted than the night before. You're up early, she said. Couldn't sleep much. He handed her a cup. Been thinking about what you said, about buying time. And there might be another option, one I didn't want to consider. He sat down heavily. The bank in town, they've offered to buy a parcel of my land before, the North Pasture. It's not the best grazing, but it borders the main road. They want to expand, build new offices. How much would they pay? Maybe 1,000, if I negotiate hard. His hands tightened on his cup. It kills me to sell even 1 acre. Sarah and I, we bought every piece of this land together. Planned where everything would go. Selling it feels like betraying her memory. Clara finished quietly. Yes. Or it feels like honoring it. Doing whatever it takes to keep the rest safe. She met his eyes. What would Sarah want you to do? Samuel's throat worked. She'd tell me land is just dirt. That what matters is living long enough to stand on it. Then there's your answer. The bank won't move fast enough. Even if they agree today, paperwork takes time. Surveys, titles, legal. He shook his head. We wouldn't see money for weeks. So we use it as leverage. Tell Cole you've got a buyer, that money's coming, that you just need a little more time. Clara leaned forward. He won't want to lose his advantage, but he won't want to push too hard if he thinks you've got another option. Men like him, they want you to choose to give up. It's not as satisfying if you're forced. You really have been watching people. For 20 years. Clara's voice went soft. I've been invisible a long time, Samuel. You see a lot when nobody's looking at you. They took his horse into town together, Clara riding behind him like she had that first day. But this time felt different. This time they weren't stranger and charity case. They were conspirators, partners. The bank was small but clean, with brass fixtures and a teller who looked at them with professional courtesy that didn't quite hide his curiosity. Samuel asked for the manager, and they were shown into a cramped office where a thin man with spectacles looked up from papers. Mr. Hargrove, the manager said. I wasn't expecting you. Mr. Porter. Samuel took off his hat. I want to talk about that offer you made. For the North Pasture. Porter's eyebrows rose. I thought you said you'd never sell. Circumstances change. Samuel's voice stayed steady. I'm willing to negotiate, but I need things moved quickly. How quickly? 2 weeks. Porter whistled low. That's not a lot of time for this kind of transaction. Surveys alone take. I'll cover the survey costs. I'll do whatever paperwork you need, but I need a commitment today and money in 2 weeks. Samuel leaned forward. You've wanted that land for 2 years, Mr. Porter. I'm giving you a chance to get it. Porter drummed his fingers on the desk, his expression calculating. The price would have to reflect the rushed timeline. I couldn't go as high as my original offer. How high could you go? 800. Maybe 9 if the survey comes back clean. Samuel's jaw tightened, but he nodded. 900. Final offer. And you start the paperwork today. I'll need time to consult with the board. You've got until end of business. Samuel stood. After that, I'm talking to the railroad company. I hear they're looking to expand their depot. Porter's eyes sharpened. That was a lie. Clara and Samuel had made it up on the ride over, but Porter didn't know that. Wait, he said. Give me an hour. I'll talk to the board chairman, see what I can do. 1 hour. Samuel put his hat back on. We'll be at the Mercantile. They left before Porter could argue. Outside, Clara looked at Samuel with approval. That was good, she said. The railroad bluff. Felt wrong, lying like that. You didn't lie. You said you'd heard they were expanding. You never said when or where. Clara smiled slightly. There's an art to it. They walked to the Mercantile where Samuel bought supplies. They didn't quite need an excuse to stay in town to be visible, to let word spread that Samuel Hargrove was in town conducting business like a man with options. The Mercantile owner, a plump woman named Mrs. Fletcher, eyed Clara with undisguised curiosity. This must be the young lady who came on the bride train, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I heard you had some trouble with the Burroughs arrangement. No trouble, Clara said evenly. Just a change of plans. And now you're staying with Mr. Hargrove. Mrs. Fletcher's eyes gleamed. How convenient. Mrs. Fletcher. Samuel's voice went cold. Mrs. Whitmore is my employee. She manages my household. If you've got something to say about that, say it plain. The woman's face reddened. I didn't mean anything untoward. Good. Then we'll take these supplies and be on our way. He paid quickly and ushered Clara out before the woman could say more. On the street, Clara let out a breath. That was small-town gossip. Don't pay it mind. She thinks I'm that were? I know what she thinks. Samuel's jaw tightened. I'm sorry. I should have warned you. People talk. Let them talk. Clara lifted her chin. I've survived worse than gossip. But the encounter rattled her more than she wanted to admit. She'd thought leaving Boston meant leaving behind judgment and whispers. But apparently, shame followed women everywhere, no matter how far they ran. They were heading back to the bank when a voice called out, Well, well, if it isn't Samuel Hargrove. Clara turned. A man stood in the street, tall, well-dressed, with slicked hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Cole Garrett. Samuel's entire body went rigid. Cole. Heard you were in town. Cole walked closer, his movements lazy and confident. Conducting business at the bank. How interesting. His eyes slid to Clara. And who's this? Mrs. Whitmore. My housekeeper. Housekeeper. Cole's smile widened. That's one word for it. He tipped his hat mockingly to Clara. Ma'am, I'm Cole Garrett. I'm sure Samuel's mentioned me. He has. Clara's voice stayed neutral. All good things, I'm sure. Cole's attention went back to Samuel. So, the bank. You selling something to raise my money? That's my business. Oh, but it's my business too. See, I've got a vested interest in your financial situation. Cole rocked back on his heels. You selling land? Samuel? Breaking up the precious ranch piece by piece, Sarah would be so proud. Samuel's hands clenched into fists. Clara stepped forward slightly, putting herself between them. Mr. Garrett, she said calmly, I believe Mr. Hargrove has made his payment arrangements clear. 2 weeks. That's the agreement, isn't it? Cole looked at her with surprise and something else, a flicker of interest. The housekeeper speaks. How refreshing. He studied her. You're the mail-order bride, the one Thomas Burrows sent back. Clara's face burned, but she held his gaze. I am. Too old for him, I heard. Cole's voice was casual, but his eyes were cruel. Imagine that. Crossing half a continent only to be rejected at the station. Must have been humiliating. Cole. Samuel's voice was dangerous. But I guess it worked out, Cole continued. Found yourself a desperate widower instead. Smart woman. Saw an opportunity and took it. He leaned closer to Clara. Question is, when Samuel loses his ranch and has nothing left, will you stick around, or will you move on to the next desperate fool? Clara's hand itched to slap him, but she kept her voice steady. I don't abandon people, Mr. Garrett, she said quietly. Even when it would be easier to walk away. Even when people like you try to make me feel small for staying. That's the difference between us. Cole's smile faltered. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. 2 weeks, he said to Samuel. And not a day more. I don't care what arrangements you're making. If you don't have $1,700 in my hand, I'm taking the ranch, and no amount of selling off pieces will stop me. He looked at Clara. Ma'am, enjoy your employment while it lasts. He walked away, his boots loud on the wooden sidewalk. Samuel let out a shaky breath. I'm sorry. He had no right to. He's scared, Clara said. What? He's scared. Didn't you see it? She watched Cole's retreating back. He came over here to intimidate you, but he's worried. The bank visit threw him off. He's wondering if maybe you've got more options than he thought. She turned to Samuel. He's the one who's desperate, not you. He needs this win. Needs to prove he's better than you. Samuel stared at her. How do you? Because I've been desperate. I know what it looks like. Clara's voice went soft. He's dangerous, Samuel. More dangerous than you think, because he's not just doing this for money. He's doing it for revenge. Revenge for what? I don't know yet, but there's something personal here, something old. She met his eyes. We need to be careful. They went back to the bank. Porter was waiting, looking nervous and excited. The board approved it, he said. $900 for the north pasture, but I need something from you. What? Samuel asked. A guarantee that Cole Garrett doesn't have first claim on that land. That if you default to him, the sale to us still stands. Porter adjusted his spectacles. I know about your situation, Mr. Hargrove. The whole town does. I need to protect the bank's investment. Samuel's face went tight. I'll sign whatever you need. And there's one more condition. Porter hesitated. The money won't be available for 3 weeks, not 2. The survey has to be completed, the title has to be cleared. 3 weeks is too late. Unless, Porter interrupted. You can convince Cole to extend your deadline. Tell him you've got a buyer, that money's coming, that you just need a little more time. If he agrees, we move forward. If not, he spread his hands. I'm sorry. The board won't approve it otherwise. Samuel and Clara looked at each other. 3 weeks. It was better than nothing, but it meant going back to Cole asking for mercy, giving him more power. I'll talk to him, Samuel said finally. Good. Porter pulled out papers. Sign these. I'll start the paperwork today. Samuel signed, his hand steady despite the weight of what he was doing. Selling Sarah's land, breaking up their dream, doing whatever it took to keep the rest safe. When they left the bank, his face was pale. 3 weeks, he said quietly. We bought 1 more week, if Cole agrees. He will, Clara said with more confidence than she felt, because he wants to watch you suffer. 1 more week of suffering is 1 more week of entertainment for him. And if we can't raise the rest in 3 weeks, then we figure out the next step, but we don't give up. She took his arm. Come on, let's go home. Home. She'd said it without thinking, and from the way Samuel looked at her, he'd noticed. They rode back in silence as the sun sank lower. Clara's mind raced with possibilities, with plans, with the growing certainty that they were caught in something bigger than debt and land. Cole Garrett wanted more than money. He wanted Samuel destroyed. And until they understood why they were fighting blind. At the ranch they found Scout barking frantically. Samuel dismounted fast, his hand going to the rifle in his saddle. Stay here, he told Clara, like hell. They approached the house together. The front door stood open. Inside, furniture was overturned. Drawers had been pulled out, contents scattered. Someone had searched the place top to bottom. Cole, Samuel said through clenched teeth. Looking for what? I don't know, but he didn't find it. Samuel's voice went grim. He would have taken it if he had. Clara bent down, picking up papers from the floor. Letters. Old photographs. A small wooden box that had been forced open, its contents dumped. Samuel, she said quietly. What was in this box? He looked at it, his face going pale. Sarah's jewelry. Her mother's ring. A locket I gave her on our wedding day. His voice broke. They were all I had left. They searched frantically, but the jewelry was gone. Taken. Stolen. Samuel sank onto a chair, his head in his hands. He took her. He took the last pieces of her. Clara knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder. We'll get them back. How? I don't know yet, but we will. Her voice hardened. He just made a mistake, Samuel. He just made this personal in a way it wasn't before. And personal means he's not thinking clearly. Personal means he's vulnerable. Samuel looked at her, his eyes red. What are we going to do? Clara thought about Thomas walking away. About Mrs. Burroughs calling her worthless. About Cole Garrett's cruel smile and stolen jewelry. And a man who'd showed her kindness when the world said she deserved none. We're going to take everything from him, she said quietly. The way he's trying to take everything from you. We're going to find his weakness, and we're going to break him. Clara. He started this fight. Her voice was steel. Now we finish it. Outside, darkness fell completely. In the overturned house, surrounded by evidence of violation and theft, Clara Whitmore made a decision. She'd spent 42 years being invisible, being overlooked, being told she had no value. Time to show the world what an invisible woman could do when someone finally saw her. Time to fight back. They worked through the night putting the house back together. Samuel moved like a man in a trance, picking up scattered photographs with shaking hands, righting overturned chairs with mechanical precision. Clara watched him spiral deeper into grief with each item he touched, each reminder of what had been stolen. "Stop," she said finally. Samuel looked up, his eyes hollow. "What? Stop torturing yourself." Clara took the photograph from his hands, a young Sarah laughing in a summer dress. "Sit down. I'll make coffee." "I can't just sit." "You can. You will." Her voice was firm. "Because falling apart won't get her jewelry back, and Cole is counting on you falling apart. So sit down and let me think." Something in her tone cut through his fog. He sat. Clara made coffee with hands that wanted to shake, but didn't, her mind racing through possibilities and discarding them just as fast. When she set the cup in front of him, Samuel wrapped his hands around it like a lifeline. "I keep seeing her face," he said quietly. "The day I gave her that locket, she cried. Happy tears. Said it was the most beautiful thing anyone had ever given her." His voice cracked. "It was just a cheap tin locket with our initials scratched inside. But she wore it every day until she couldn't wear anything anymore." Clara sat across from him. "Tell me about Cole. Not the man he is now. The boy he was. Before everything went wrong between you." Samuel looked confused. "Why does that matter?" "Because people don't hate each other for no reason. Not like this. There's history here. Something that turned a friendship into—" She gestured at the ransacked house. "Into this." Samuel was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was distant. "We were 12 when we met. His family had just moved to town. His pa was already drinking heavy. His ma worked herself to the bone. Cole showed up to school in clothes that didn't fit, shoes with holes." Samuel's jaw tightened. "Kids were cruel, called him trash, said he smelled like poverty. But you didn't." "I felt bad for him, invited him home for supper. My parents, they had money position. They felt charitable, I guess. Cole started coming around regular. We became friends, best friends." He took a sip of coffee. "He was smart. Smarter than me. Could have done anything if he'd had the opportunities." "What happened?" "Sarah happened." Samuel's voice went rough. "When we were 20, Sarah moved to town. Her family bought the dress shop. She was God. She was beautiful, kind, funny. Every unmarried man in town wanted her attention." Clara's stomach sank. She was starting to see it. "Cole fell hard," Samuel continued. "Spent months working up the courage to court her proper. Saved every penny to buy her flowers. Practiced what he'd say." His hands tightened on the cup. "And then I started talking to her. I started. Just friendly at first. But then it became more. And I didn't think about what it would do to Cole. Didn't think about anything except how she made me laugh. How she saw me. He asked her first, didn't he? The day before I was going to." Samuel's voice was barely audible. "He showed up at her shop with flowers and his best clothes and his whole heart in his hands. And she said no. Said she was flattered, but she didn't feel that way about him. He closed his eyes. The next day I asked, and she said yes." "Oh, Samuel." "Cole didn't speak to me for a year. Wouldn't even look at me. Then finally at the wedding he showed up, stood in the back. When Sarah and I walked past him leaving the church, he grabbed my arm." Samuel's voice shook. He said, "You took the only good thing I ever wanted. I hope you know what you've done." And I told him I was sorry. That I never meant to hurt him. That I hoped we could still be friends. What did he say? He said, "We were never friends, Samuel. You were the rich boy playing charity case. And now you've got everything Moneyland, the girl who was too good for trash like me. But nothing lasts forever. Remember that." Samuel looked at Clara. "That was 18 years ago. I thought he'd moved on, built his businesses, made his fortune. But he never forgot, never forgave." Clara's mind clicked pieces into place. He's been waiting. All these years. Waiting for you to be vulnerable enough to destroy. Sarah's death was his opening. And he took it. Clara's voice hardened. But he made a mistake tonight. He let his emotions control him. Stealing that jewelry wasn't strategic. It was vindictive, personal. It means he's not thinking clearly anymore. How does that help us? Because emotional people make mistakes, and we're going to use every single one. Clara leaned forward. Where does Cole keep his valuables? Does he have a safe, a bank deposit box? He's got a safe in his office, above the saloon. Samuel's eyes narrowed. You're not suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything yet. I'm gathering information. She drummed her fingers on the table. Does he live alone? Has a house on the edge of town. Big place. Too big for one man, but he likes showing it off. Staff. A cook who comes in daily. Maybe a cleaning woman. He's too cheap to keep live-in help. Samuel studied her face. Clara, what are you planning? I don't know yet, but I'm tired of defending. Tired of reacting. She met his eyes. Cole expects you to come begging. To ask for more time to grovel to prove he was right about you being weak. What if we did the opposite? What opposite? What if we made him think he'd already won? That you're broken. Done fighting. Ready to hand over the ranch and walk away. Samuel's face twisted. I can't. I know. But he doesn't know that. Clara's voice intensified. If he thinks the game is over, he'll relax. Get careless. Maybe even gloat. And while he's celebrating his victory, we'll be finding a way to take everything he's stolen, the jewelry, the leverage, the satisfaction, and shove it right back down his throat. You want to trick him? I want to beat him at his own game. Clara's eyes were hard. He thinks we're desperate and stupid. Let's prove him half right. Samuel stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Who are you, Clara Whitmore? Someone who's been underestimated her whole life. She smiled grimly. Time to make that work for us. They spent the rest of the night planning. By the time dawn broke, they had the skeleton of a strategy dangerous, barely plausible, requiring perfect timing and a lot of luck. But it was something. More than they'd had before. I'll go to Cole tomorrow, Samuel said as the first light filtered through the windows. Tell him I can't make the payment, that the bank deal fell through, that I'm done fighting. He won't believe you immediately. I know. That's why I'll give him the deed. Tell him he can have it all, ranch land, everything, if he just gives me 2 weeks to pack up Sarah's things and say goodbye. Samuel's voice was steady now, focused. He'll love that. Love watching me admit defeat. Love knowing he finally won. And while he's gloating, you'll be doing what you need to do. He looked at her. I'm trusting you, Clara. More than I've trusted anyone since Sarah died. The weight of that trust settled on her shoulders. I won't let you down. I know you won't. He reached across the table and took her hand. Whatever happens, thank you. For fighting when you had every reason to run. For caring when you had every reason not to. Clara's throat tightened. You saw me when I was invisible. This is just returning the favor. They held each other's gaze for a long moment. Two people bound together by desperation and determination, and something deeper neither was ready to name. Then Samuel stood. I should feed the animals, do the morning chores before I go into town. I'll start breakfast. They moved through the morning routine with the careful choreography of people pretending everything was normal. But Clara's mind raced behind her calm exterior, planning, calculating, preparing for what came next. After Samuel left for town, she waited exactly 10 minutes. Then she changed into her oldest dress, pulled a shawl over her hair to hide her face, and headed toward town herself on foot. The walk was long, but she needed time to think, to prepare to become someone other than Clara Whitmore. She reached town by mid-morning and made her way to the saloon, carefully keeping to the back streets. The building was 2 stories, saloon on the first floor, Cole's office, and rooms on the second. She studied it from across the street, noting the external stairs, the windows, the way the door to his office faced away from the main street. A woman emerged from a side door, middle-aged, tired-looking, carrying a basket. The cook, Clara guessed. She waited until the woman was halfway down the street, then approached her. "Excuse me," Clara said, keeping her voice soft and her face partially hidden. "I'm looking for work. I heard Mr. Garrett might need household help." The cook looked her over with weary eyes. "You don't want to work for that man, honey? Trust me." "I'm desperate. Any work is better than none." The cook sighed. "He's particular. Mean when things aren't perfect, and he don't pay well despite all his money." She shifted her basket. "But if you're determined, he'll be at his office around noon. Comes back from his morning rounds of collecting rents and loan payments. That's when he's in the best mood, when he's counting money." "Thank you." The cook touched Clara's arm. "You seem like a decent woman. Take some advice. Find work somewhere else. Garrett's got a mean streak and he likes vulnerable women he can push around." Clara's jaw tightened. "I'll be careful." The cook shook her head and walked away. Clara slipped into an alley and waited, watching the building. She needed to understand Cole's patterns, his movements, his security measures. Needed to know everything before she made her move. Around 11:30, Cole appeared on horseback, looking pleased with himself. He dismounted, tied his horse, and climbed the external stairs to his office. Through the window, Clara saw him sit at his desk and begin counting money from a leather bag. Her stomach turned. That money probably included payments from desperate people like Samuel. People Cole was systematically destroying while pretending to help. She watched for another hour. Cole left his office twice, once to shout at someone downstairs, once to use the outhouse behind the building. Both times he left his office door unlocked. Careless, arrogant, good. Clara made her way back to the ranch, her mind cataloging everything she'd seen. When she arrived, Samuel's horse was already there. She found him sitting on the porch, his face pale. "How did it go?" she asked. "He believed me. Too easily, maybe." Samuel's voice was flat. "I told him I was done fighting, that he could have the ranch if he gave me 2 weeks to clear out. He laughed, Clara. Laughed right in my face and said he'd give me 1 week out of the goodness of his heart. 7 days to pack up my life and disappear." "Did he seem suspicious?" "If he was, he hid it well. Mostly he just seemed satisfied, like he'd been waiting 18 years for this moment, and it was everything he'd hoped." Samuel's hands clenched. "I signed papers, gave him documentation, made it official. The ranch is his in 7 days unless we come up with a miracle. Then we better start working on that miracle." Clara sat beside him. "I went to town, watched his office. He's arrogant, Samuel. Leaves things unlocked. Doesn't think anyone would dare cross him." "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking I need to get into that office, see what he's got in that safe, find out what leverage he's holding besides the ranch." "That's breaking and entering. You could be arrested, or worse if Cole catches you." "He won't." Clara's voice was steady. "Because I'm invisible, remember. Just an old mail-order bride nobody wanted. Who would suspect me?" "Clara." "Do you have a better idea? Because in 7 days, this ranch is his. In 7 days, you lose everything. And I—" She stopped, her voice catching. "I can't watch that happen. I won't." Samuel looked at her, his expression torn between fear and gratitude. "Why are you doing this? Really, you could walk away right now, take what's left of your savings, and start over somewhere else. But you're choosing to stay and fight for a man you've known less than a week. Why?" Clara thought about the platform, about Thomas walking away, about 42 years of being told she had no value. "Because you asked me to be yours," she said quietly. "Not because you needed a wife, or a servant, or someone young and useful. You asked because you saw me drowning, and you threw me a rope. And then you held on, even when I was dead weight pulling you down." She met his eyes. "Nobody's ever done that before. Nobody's ever chosen me, just because I was worth choosing. Clara. So yes, I'm staying. And yes, I'm going to break into Cole's office and find whatever he's hiding. And yes, it's dangerous and stupid and probably won't work. She smiled slightly. But at least I'll know I fought for something that mattered. For someone who mattered. Samuel's eyes were bright with unshed tears. If something happens to you, then you'll keep fighting. You'll find another way. You'll honor Sarah's memory by refusing to let that bastard win. She squeezed his hand. But nothing's going to happen, because I'm smarter than Cole thinks. We both are. When, tonight, he goes to the saloon every evening around 8, drinks with the other businessmen, plays cards, doesn't come back upstairs until after midnight. How do you know that? I asked around, carefully, pretended I was looking for work. Clara stood. I'll go in through the external stairs, pick the lock if I have to, find what I can and get out. 30 minutes maximum. I'm coming with you. No, you're staying here. If anyone sees you in town, they'll know something's wrong. But me. She smiled grimly. I'm just a desperate woman looking for work. Nobody notices desperate women. Samuel stood too, his face set. I don't like this. You don't have to like it. You just have to trust me. I do trust you. That's the problem. He pulled her into a sudden fierce hug. Come back safe. Please. Clara held on to him, feeling his heart beat against hers, feeling the desperation in his grip. This wasn't romance, it was something raw. Two people clinging to each other against the darkness. I will, she whispered. I promise. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Samuel showed her how to pick a simple lock, using techniques he'd learned growing up on a ranch. Clara practiced until her fingers ached. They went over the plan again and again, refining it, anticipating problems. As evening approached, Clara changed back into her oldest dress. She braided her hair tightly, wrapped a dark shawl around her shoulders. Looked at herself in the mirror and saw a stranger staring back, someone hard and determined, and nothing like the broken woman who'd stepped off that train. I barely recognize myself, she said. Samuel stood in the doorway. I do. I see exactly who you are. What do you see? Someone stronger than she knows. Someone who survived being invisible by learning to see everything. He crossed to her, put his hands on her shoulders. Someone I'm damn lucky found her way to my ranch. Clara's throat tightened. Samuel. I know this isn't the time, but I need to say it anyway. His voice was rough. If something goes wrong tonight, if Cole finds out, if this all goes to hell, I want you to know something. He met her eyes. Meeting you was the best thing that's happened to me in 8 years. You woke something up in me I thought died with Sarah. And whatever happens, I'm grateful. Don't talk like that, like we're saying goodbye. I'm not. I'm saying what needs saying before it's too late. He touched her face gently. Be careful. Be smart. And come home. Home, Clara repeated softly. The word settled in her chest like a promise. Home, Samuel confirmed. This is your home now, for as long as you want it. Clara wanted to say something profound, something meaningful, but words felt inadequate. So instead, she stood on her toes and kissed his cheek, quick and chaste and full of things she couldn't name yet. I'll see you in a few hours, she said. Then she left before she could lose her nerve. The walk to town felt longer in the darkness. Clara kept to the shadows, her heart pounding, but her mind clear. She'd spent 42 years being afraid. Tonight, she was done with fear. The saloon was loud when she reached it, music and laughter spilling into the street. Through the window, she could see Cole at a card table surrounded by other men, a glass of whiskey at his elbow. He looked relaxed, confident. She circled to the back of the building where the external stairs climbed to his office. The street was empty. She climbed quickly, her feet light on the wooden steps, and tried the door. Locked. Clara pulled out the wire Samuel had given her and went to work. Her hands shook for the first 30 seconds, then steadied. The lock was simple, meant to keep out casual intruders, not someone determined. After 2 minutes, she felt the mechanism give. The door opened with a soft click. She slipped inside and closed it behind her. The office was dim-lit only by moonlight through the windows. Clara waited for her eyes to adjust, then moved carefully to the desk. Papers covered the surface: loan agreements, deeds, contracts. She rifled through them quickly, looking for anything related to Samuel. Nothing. The safe sat against the far wall, a large iron box with a combination lock. Clara's heart sank. She had no idea how to crack a safe. No skills in that area. She was about to give up when she noticed something. The safe door wasn't quite flush. Someone had closed it but not locked it properly. Careless. Arrogant. She pulled the handle. The door swung open. Inside, Clara found stacks of cash, more papers, and a small wooden box. She opened the box, and her breath caught. Sarah's jewelry, the locket, the ring, everything Cole had stolen. She grabbed the box and shoved it inside her dress. Then she turned her attention to the papers. Loan agreements with Samuel's name. But also something else: letters. Old letters in feminine handwriting. Clara pulled one out and read by the moonlight. "Dear Cole, I am sorry. I know this hurts you, but I cannot give you what you want. My heart belongs to another. Please understand, this is not about your station or your family. It is simply that I do not feel for you what you feel for me. I hope someday you can forgive me. Sarah." Clara's hands trembled. This was it. The proof of Cole's obsession. The evidence of his 18-year vendetta. She grabbed the letters and added them to the box hidden in her dress. Then she heard footsteps on the stairs. Clara's heart stopped. She looked around frantically. No back door. One window, but it faced the street. The footsteps grew louder. Heavy boots, angry stride. Cole's voice carried through the door. "Told you I don't care what it costs. I want him gone. I want—" He stopped. Clara realized too late what he'd seen: the door slightly ajar. The lock picked. "What the hell?" The door slammed open. Cole stood silhouetted against the light from downstairs, his face twisted with fury. His eyes found Clara. Recognition dawned. "You," he said. His voice was deadly quiet. "The mail-order bride." Clara's mind raced. She couldn't run, he blocked the only exit. Couldn't fight, he was twice her size. Couldn't talk her way out, the evidence was literally pressed against her chest. So she did the only thing she could think of. She told the truth. "Sarah didn't love you," Clara said clearly. "And she never would have. Not because of your family, or your money, or anything you could have changed. She simply loved someone else. And you've spent 18 years destroying that man because you couldn't accept it." Cole's face went white, then red. "You have no idea. I have every idea. I'm 42 years old. I've watched men like you my whole life, men who think the world owes them something, who think women are prizes to be won or trophies to be possessed." Clara's voice steadied. "But we're not. We're people, with our own hearts and our own choices. And Sarah chose Samuel, and no amount of revenge will change that." "Shut up. She's dead, Cole. She's been dead for 8 years, and destroying Samuel won't bring her back, won't make her love you, won't fill whatever hole is eating you alive." Clara took a step forward. "It'll just make you more alone, more bitter, more pathetic." Cole's hand shot out and grabbed her throat. Clara gasped, clawing at his fingers. "You think you can come into my office, steal from me, and lecture me?" His grip tightened. "You're nothing, an old whore Samuel picked up because he was lonely. And when I'm done with him, you'll have nowhere to go. Nothing, just like you deserve." Clara's vision started to blur. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then she heard a voice behind Cole. "Let her go." Samuel stood in the doorway, a rifle in his hands, his face carved from stone. "Or what?" Cole laughed, not releasing his grip. "You'll shoot me in front of witnesses. You'll hang." "Maybe, but you'll be dead." Samuel's voice was ice. So let's find out if your pride is worth your life." For a long moment, nobody moved. Clara's lungs burned. Cole's fingers dug into her throat. Then Samuel cocked the rifle. The sound echoed in the small space. Cole's grip loosened. Clara fell to her knees, gasping. "Get away from her," Samuel said. "Now." Cole stepped back slowly, his hands raised. But his face was twisted with such hate, Clara knew this wasn't over. "You'll regret this," Cole said quietly. "Both of you." "Maybe?" Samuel moved into the room, keeping the rifle trained on Cole. "But right now you're going to sit in that chair and shut up while Clara and I finish our business." "Your business? Sit down." Something in Samuel's voice made Cole obey. He sat, his eyes burning with fury. Clara struggled to her feet, her throat aching. She pulled the wooden box from her dress and set it on the desk. "Sarah's jewelry," she rasped. "You stole it. That's theft, Cole." "Prove it." "These letters prove it." She pulled them out. Letters from Sarah, rejecting you, explaining why she couldn't love you. You kept them, all these years. She looked at him. Why to torture yourself? To fuel your hate? Cole's face was expressionless. "Those are private." "Not anymore." Clara turned to Samuel. "We're taking these, and the jewelry, and we're leaving. And you," she looked at Cole, "are going to extend Samuel's deadline. 6 months. Give him time to raise the money properly. And if I don't, then I take these letters to every person in town. Show them what kind of man you really are. Show them you've been running an 18-year revenge plot against a man whose only crime was being loved by the woman who didn't love you." Clara's voice hardened. "Your reputation means everything to you, doesn't it? Your standing, your respect. What happens when everyone knows the truth?" Cole's jaw clenched. "You wouldn't." "Try me." They stared at each other. Then Cole smiled, cold and mean. "Fine. 6 months. But the interest doubles. And if he can't pay by then, I get double the land. Those are my terms." "Done," Samuel said before Clara could argue. "Now get out." Cole's voice was poison. "Before I change my mind and call the sheriff about breaking and entering." Samuel grabbed Clara's arm and pulled her toward the door. They backed out slowly, Samuel keeping the rifle trained on Cole, until they were on the stairs. Then they ran. They ran through the dark streets, through the empty fields, ran until Clara's lungs burned and her legs gave out. Samuel caught her before she fell, held her up, kept them moving. Only when they reached the ranch did they stop. Samuel set down the rifle and pulled Clara into his arms, his whole body shaking. "I thought he was going to kill you," he whispered. "I thought, I'm okay. I'm okay." Clara held him tight, feeling his heart race against hers. "You're not okay. Look at your neck." "It doesn't matter. We got what we needed." She pulled back, showed him the box. Her jewelry, the letters, proof of everything. Samuel opened the box with shaking hands, touched the locket, the ring. His face crumpled. "Sarah," he whispered. Clara gave him privacy while he broke down, stood guard while he grieved, held him when he was ready to be held. Later, much later, they sat on the porch as dawn approached. Neither had slept. Neither wanted to. 6 months, Samuel said quietly. "We bought time, real time. At a terrible cost. But time anyway." He looked at her. "How did you know I'd followed you?" "I hoped you would. I counted on you not being able to stay away." Clara smiled slightly. "Turns out I was right. You took a hell of a risk." "So did you." They were quiet. Then Samuel said, "Cole's not done with us. You know that." "I know." "He'll come after us harder now, more viciously." "I know that too." "And you're still staying." Clara thought about that platform, about the nothing she'd left behind, about the something she'd found here. "I'm still staying," she said. "For as long as you'll have me." Samuel took her hand, laced his fingers through hers. "Forever then," he said quietly, "if you'll have me for that long." Clara's throat tightened. It was too soon, too fast, too impossible. But sitting there watching the sun rise over land they'd fought for together, Clara realized she didn't care about timing or logic or sensible choices. She cared about this man, this fight, this chance at something real. "Forever," she whispered back. "I can do forever." And for the first time in 8 years, Samuel Hargrove smiled like he meant it. The word hung between them like a vow neither had planned to make. Forever. Clara felt it settle into her bones, terrifying and right in equal measure. Samuel's thumb traced circles on her palm. "I should probably court you properly. Take you to church socials. Let you meet people in town. Do this the right way." The right way would have been me marrying Thomas Burroughs and spending my life being reminded I was too old to deserve kindness. Clara's voice was steady. "I think we're past worrying about the right way. People will talk. Let them. They'll say terrible things. About you. About us. They already do." Clara met his eyes. "Mrs. Fletcher made that clear, but their words can't hurt me anymore, Samuel. I've heard worse from people who mattered more, and I'm still standing." He lifted her hand and kissed her bruised knuckles. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." "I'm terrified." "That doesn't make you less strong. It makes you human." He stood pulling her up with him. "Come on. We should try to sleep for a few hours. Today we've got work to do." But neither of them could sleep. Clara lay in her small room listening to Samuel move around downstairs, both of them too wired with adrenaline and relief and the weight of what they'd done. Finally, as full morning broke, she gave up and went down to find him making coffee with shaking hands. "Couldn't sleep either?" she asked. "Keep seeing his face, the way he looked at you." Samuel's jaw tightened. "I wanted to kill him, Clara. In that moment, I actually wanted to pull that trigger. But you didn't. Because you were there. Because killing him would have meant leaving you alone to face the consequences." He poured coffee, his movements jerky. "But the wanting that scared me. I didn't think I had that kind of violence left in me." Clara took the cup he offered. "You have that kind of love left in you." That's what it was. Love protecting itself. Love. He said the word like testing its weight. "Is that what this is?" "I don't know what else to call it." Clara's face heated. "It's too soon. Too fast. Too real," Samuel finished. "It's too real for how little time we've known each other." He sat across from her. "But I can't deny it. Can't pretend I don't feel." He stopped struggling. "Sarah was my first love. My only love. For 18 years, she was everything. And when she died, I thought that was it. Thought I'd used up my capacity for loving someone. But then you stepped off that train, looking like your heart had been broken and still refusing to cry. And something in me recognized something in you." His voice roughened. "I don't know if it's love yet. Don't know if I remember how love feels when it's new instead of worn comfortable. But I know I want to find out. With you." Clara's eyes stung. "I've never been loved, Samuel. Not really. My parents died when I was young. I had guardians who fed me and clothed me but never saw me. Then I was on my own, working, surviving, watching other women get courted and married while I got older and more invisible." She set down her cup. "I don't know how to be loved. Don't know if I'm even capable of it." "You're capable of fighting for it. That's more than most people can say." He reached across the table. "We'll figure it out together, make mistakes together, learn together. And if we fail, then at least we'll fail having tried." Samuel's smile was crooked. "Better than dying alone wondering what if." They drank their coffee as the sun climbed higher and slowly the terror of the night before transformed into something else. Not quite hope, they were still too deep in trouble for hope, but possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, they could build something from the wreckage of their separate devastations. "We need to talk about the next 6 months," Samuel said finally. "Cole gave us time, but that doesn't solve the actual problem. I still need to raise $1,700. The bank will give you $900 for the north pasture. In 3 weeks, which helps but isn't enough." He rubbed his face. "I've been thinking. The cattle could bring in maybe $600 if I sell them now instead of waiting for full weight. That's $1,500 total. Still $200 short plus whatever extra Cole's charging in interest. Can you take another loan from a different lender?" "Not without collateral. And the ranch is already leveraged to Cole." Samuel's shoulders slumped. "I'm running out of options." Clara's mind raced through possibilities. "What about the harvest? You said it wouldn't come in for months, but could you sell the future yield now? Get paid in advance?" "Maybe, but it's risky for buyers. They'd want a steep discount." He looked at her. "Every solution involves selling pieces of what Sarah and I built, cutting away chunks of our dream to save what's left." "Would she blame you?" "No. She'd tell me to do whatever it takes to survive, to keep going." His voice cracked. "But I blame me. For being weak after she died. For letting Cole get his hooks in. For not being strong enough to—" "Stop." Clara's voice was firm. "You were grieving. You were human. You made decisions you wouldn't make now, but that doesn't make them shameful. It makes them understandable." Cole doesn't see it that way. Cole's spent 18 years nursing a wound that should have healed. His perspective isn't one we should care about. She leaned forward. "Listen to me, Samuel. We have 6 months. That's 6 months to work every angle to find every possible source of money to rebuild and replant and fight. It's more time than we had yesterday. We use it. And if it's not enough, then we figure out the next step. But we don't give up. We don't let him win." Clara's eyes burned with intensity. "He wants you broken. Wants you to believe you deserve this pain. We prove him wrong by refusing to break." Samuel looked at her with something like awe. "How are you this strong?" "I'm not. I'm terrified. But I learned a long time ago that terror doesn't get to make your choices for you." She squeezed his hand. "We survive this together. That's all that matters." The next 3 weeks were brutal. Samuel sold the cattle at a loss that made him physically ill. The bank completed the survey of the north pasture and cut him a check that felt like blood money. Clara worked the house and garden until her hands bled selling eggs and vegetables in town for pennies that added up slowly. They counted every dollar rationed, every expense lived like paupers on land that had once held abundance. And through it all, Cole watched. He'd ride past the ranch sometimes, sitting tall on his horse, his face expressionless, but his presence a constant threat. He never stopped, never spoke, just watched like a predator waiting for weakness. "He's trying to break us psychologically," Clara said one evening as they sat on the porch after another long day. "Reminding us he's there, that he owns our future." "It's working." Samuel's voice was hollow. "I see him in my sleep, hear his laugh every time I have to sell something else. Then we stop looking at him, stop letting him be the center of our story." Clara turned to Samuel. "What do you want, Samuel? Not what you're trying to avoid losing. What do you actually want?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I want peace. Want to wake up without dread in my chest. Want to work this land because I love it, not because I'm desperately trying to save it." His voice softened. "Want to build something new. Not just preserve Sarah's memory, but create something that's ours." "Ours," Clara repeated softly. "I like the sound of that." "Do you?" He looked at her. "Do you actually want to stay here on this struggling ranch with a broken widower who might lose everything anyway? Or are you just staying because you have nowhere else to go?" Clara thought about that question. Really thought about it. "At first, maybe it was because I had nowhere else. But now, she searched for words. Now I stay because this feels like the first place I've ever belonged. Because working beside you feels right in a way nothing else ever has. Because when I think about leaving, my chest hurts. That's not love talking. That's fear of being alone again. Maybe? Clara met his eyes. Or maybe it's both. Maybe love grows from that fear. From finding someone who sees you and choosing to build something together despite being terrified it'll fall apart. She touched his face. I'm choosing you, Samuel. Not because you're perfect or because this is easy, but because you're worth choosing. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. I don't deserve you. You don't get to decide that. I do. And I say you deserve someone who fights for you the way you fought for me that night on the platform. She smiled. Now stop arguing and kiss me before I lose my nerve. He laughed, surprised and genuine, and then he did. Kissed her soft and careful and full of promise. Nothing practiced or smooth, just honest and real, and theirs. When they pulled apart, Samuel's face was lighter than she'd seen it in weeks. Marry me, he said. Clara's breath caught. What? Marry me. Not because we have to, not because it's practical, but because I want to build an us, want to stop calling this yours and mine and start calling it ours. His hands cradled her face. I know it's fast. No people will talk, but I don't care anymore. I want you as my wife, Clara, for real, for always. Samuel, if you need time to think about it. Yes. He stopped. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Clara laughed, the sound bright with tears and joy and disbelief. I came here to be a mail-order bride. Might as well actually become one. You'll be so much more than that. I know. I'll be yours, and you'll be mine, and together we'll... She stopped, overwhelmed. Together we'll figure it out. They married 3 days later in the small church with only the pastor and his wife as witnesses. Clara wore her best dress, still plain, still showing its age, and Samuel wore his only suit. They spoke vows that felt more real than any Clara had heard at the fancy weddings she'd watched from the back pew in Boston. When the pastor said, "You may kiss your bride," Samuel did it like he meant it, like she was precious, like she was chosen. Afterward, they walked back to the ranch hand in hand. No reception, no guests, just the two of them and the life they'd decided to build together. Mrs. Hargrove, Samuel said as they climbed the porch steps. How does that sound? Terrifying? Clara smiled. And perfect. That night, they consummated their marriage with the gentle awkwardness of two people learning each other. Nothing practiced or perfect, just honest and real and full of laughter when things didn't work quite right. And after lying in Samuel's arms in the bed he'd once shared with Sarah, Clara felt something she'd never felt before. Chosen. Wanted. Home. Thank you, she whispered into the darkness. For what? For seeing me. For choosing me. For believing I was worth fighting for. Samuel held her closer. Thank you for the same. The months that followed were hard. They worked dawn to dusk, scraping together money however they could. Samuel took odd jobs in town. Clara sold her sewing skills, her baking, anything that would bring in a few dollars. They lived lean, cutting every unnecessary expense, hoarding every penny for Cole's payment. And slowly, painfully, the numbers started to add up. 900 from the bank, 600 from the cattle, 300 from harvest futures Samuel had sold at brutal rates, 200 from Clara's endless work, another 100 from selling equipment they could barely afford to lose. $2,100, more than they needed, enough to pay Cole and have a tiny buffer left over. They counted it 3 times to be sure, sitting at the kitchen table with money spread before them. 6 months of brutal work, 6 months of sacrifice and fear and refusing to give up. We did it, Samuel said, his voice hollow with disbelief. We actually did it. Clara wanted to celebrate, but something felt wrong. The victory felt too easy, too clean. "We need to pay him tomorrow," she said. "First thing, before he can change the terms or find some new way to trap us." Agreed. Samuel carefully put the money in a leather bag. "I'll ride into town at dawn. Get this over with." But Clara's unease kept her awake that night. She lay beside Samuel listening to him sleep, and couldn't shake the feeling that Cole had one more move left, one more trap waiting. She was right. Samuel rode into town at dawn and went straight to Cole's office. He climbed those same external stairs Clara had climbed months ago, knocked on the door and waited. Cole answered, looking pleased with himself. "Samuel, right on time." "I have your money." Samuel held out the leather bag. $2,000, exactly what we agreed. Cole took the bag but didn't open it. "Interesting. I'd heard you'd been scraping together funds, selling everything that wasn't nailed down. Thought maybe you'd come up short." "We didn't. We paid." Samuel's voice was hard. "Give me the papers. The deed. Everything that says I owe you." "About that." Cole's smile widened. "See, we had an agreement. You pay me $2,000 in 6 months, I forgive your debt. But there's a problem." "What problem?" "You didn't pay me, not technically." Cole opened the bag, looked at the money, closed it again. "This is your wife's money, isn't it? Clara's savings. Clara's earnings from all her sewing and selling. Clara's contribution." "It's our money. We're married. What's hers is mine." "Legally, sure, but morally, ethically." Cole shook his head. "The agreement was that you, Samuel Hargrove, would pay your debt. Not that your wife would bail you out. Not that you'd let a woman save you because you're too weak to save yourself." Samuel's face went white. "You can't. The agreement didn't specify, didn't it?" Cole pulled out papers. "Read it yourself. Samuel Hargrove will pay. Not Samuel Hargrove and his wife. Not whoever Samuel can convince to give him money. You, Samuel, yourself. This is insane. This is the agreement you signed." Cole's voice was ice. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take your wife's money and go home, and you're going to earn that $2,000 yourself. No help, no bailouts, no hiding behind a woman's skirts." His smile was cruel. "You have 30 days, and if you can't do it, if you're still too weak, too broken, too pathetic to save yourself, then I take everything. And this time there's no extension, no mercy, no second chances." Samuel stood frozen. "You planned this. All of it. You knew we'd scramble together money. Knew Clara would help. And you waited until we thought we'd won to show you that you haven't won anything. That you're still the weak man who let his wife die, who let another woman save him because he's too incompetent to save himself." Cole leaned closer. 30 days, Samuel. Prove you're worth the land you're fighting for, or admit defeat and walk away." Samuel wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but the papers were clear. The loophole was real, and Cole had them trapped again. He took the money and left. When he got home, Clara was waiting on the porch. She saw his face and stood slowly. "What happened?" Samuel told her. Every word, every trap, every cruel twist of Cole's knife. When he finished, Clara sat down hard. 30 days. You need to earn $2,000 in 30 days without my help. It's impossible. It's designed to be impossible. He wants you to fail. Wants to watch you realize you can't do it and give up." Clara's voice shook. "He wants to break you completely before he takes everything." "He's going to succeed." Samuel's voice was hollow. "Because I can't earn that kind of money in 30 days. Not alone. Not without—" He stopped. "I should just give him the ranch. Save us both the pain of prolonging this." "No." "Clara, no." She stood, her face set. "We didn't fight this hard to give up now. We didn't survive this long to let him win because of a technicality. What choice do we have?" Clara's mind raced. 30 days. $2,000. Samuel working alone. It was impossible. Unless, what if you weren't alone? She said slowly. Cole said, I can't use your help. He said you can't use my money. He said you have to earn it yourself. Clara's eyes gleamed. He didn't say you can't have a partner. Someone who works alongside you, who helps you earn it as long as the work is yours. I don't understand. What's the fastest way to make money on a ranch? Selling crops or livestock. But I don't have either. We sold everything. So we get more. We buy cattle with my money. That's still your money. No, listen. Clara grabbed his hands. We use my money to buy cattle. Then you work them, fatten them, sell them at profit. The initial investment is mine, but the labor is yours. The value you add is yours, and the profit is what you earned through your own work. Samuel stared at her. That's semantics. That's the letter of his agreement. He said you have to earn it. Fine. You'll earn it by adding value through your labor. The fact that I provided the initial capital doesn't change that you're the one doing the work, making the decisions, creating the profit. Cole will never accept that. Cole doesn't get to decide what counts as earning. The agreement is clear. You have to pay him money you earned. This is money you'll earn. Clara's voice intensified. We do this right. We buy cattle tomorrow. You work them brutal for 30 days. We sell them at profit. And you walk into his office with money you legitimately earned through your own labor. He can't argue with that. And if we can't make enough profit in 30 days, then we fail. But we fail trying everything we could instead of giving up because he wants us to. Clara's eyes burned. I refuse to let him win, Samuel. Refuse to let him take our home without exhausting every possible option. So we try. We fight. We gamble everything on 30 days of brutal work. And maybe we pull off a miracle. Samuel looked at his wife, this woman who'd been rejected and dismissed, and told she was worthless, now standing before him proposing to risk everything on an impossible plan. This woman who'd chosen him, who'd fought for him, who refused to let him give up even when giving up seemed rational. Okay, he said. We try. They spent that day riding to every ranch within 50 miles looking for cattle they could buy cheap and sell high. Found a rancher with a herd he needed to move fast. Good stock, but young. Needed fattening. Needed work. How much for all of them? Samuel asked. $1,800 for the lot. That's below market, but I need cash now. Samuel and Clara looked at each other. That would leave them only $300 for feed and supplies and living. It was insane, risky, probably stupid. We'll take them, Samuel said. They brought the cattle home, and Samuel immediately went to work. He barely slept, barely ate, just worked the cattle dawn to dusk and beyond. Clara worked beside him, despite Cole's restrictions, not for profit, but to keep Samuel upright, to feed him, to force him to rest when his body was breaking down. The days blurred together. Samuel lost weight. His hands cracked and bled. But the cattle fattened, grew stronger, became valuable. On day 28, a buyer came through town, a merchant from back east, looking for quality stock to ship. Samuel showed him the cattle with hands that shook from exhaustion. Good animals, the buyer said. Well cared for. How much? $3,000, Samuel said. His voice was steady despite his terror. That's high. That's fair. They're worth it. The buyer studied the cattle, studied Samuel. $2,800. Final offer. Samuel's heart nearly stopped. $2,800. Minus the $1,800 he'd paid. That was $1,000 profit. Not enough. I need $3,000, Samuel said quietly. I've got everything riding on this sale. Everything. Something in his voice must have reached the buyer. The man looked at him for a long moment. You're the one Cole Garrett's trying to destroy, aren't you? Samuel's jaw tightened. Yes. Heard about that. Whole territory's been watching. The buyer was quiet. I knew Sarah. Met her once at a church social. Sweet woman. Didn't deserve what happened to her. And you don't deserve what he's doing. He held out his hand. 3,000. Because sometimes the right thing matters more than the best deal. Samuel shook his hand, his eyes burning. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just beat him. Show everyone that decent people can still win. Samuel got the money, $3,000 in cash. Minus the $1,800 for the cattle. $1,200 profit earned through 30 days of brutal labor. Still not enough. He rode home and found Clara waiting. When he told her, she did the math in her head, and her face went pale. We're $800 short. I know. We have 2 days. I know. Samuel's shoulders slumped. I don't know how... Wait. Clara's eyes widened. Samuel, the jewelry. Sarah's jewelry. What about it? It's worth something. The locket, the ring. If we sold them... No. Samuel's voice was flat. Absolutely not. Samuel. No. That jewelry is all I have left of her. The only physical pieces. I can't. Then what do we do? Clara's voice broke. We're out of options. Out of time. Out of... She stopped. Looked at her hand. At the simple gold band Samuel had bought her for their wedding. It wasn't expensive. They couldn't afford expensive. But it was hers. My ring, she said quietly. Clara, no. It's gold. It's worth something. She started pulling it off. We sell it. Add it to what you earned. Maybe it's enough. I won't let you give up your wedding ring. It's just metal. Clara's voice was firm. It doesn't mean anything, except what we decide it means. And right now it means the difference between keeping our home and losing everything. She held it out. Take it. Sell it. Use it. Clara. Please. Her eyes filled with tears. Let me do this. Let me help the only way I still can. Samuel took the ring with shaking hands. Stared at it like it was the most precious thing in the world. I'll buy you another one, he whispered. Soon as we're clear. I'll buy you the most beautiful ring I can find and put it on your finger properly and... I know. Clara kissed him. Now go. We're running out of time. Samuel rode to the jeweler in town. Sold Clara's ring for $400 more than it was worth because the jeweler was a kind man who'd heard their story. Sold Sarah's locket for $300 more. Kept only the ring, Sarah's mother's ring, because he couldn't bring himself to let go of everything. $700. Added to the $1,200 he'd earned. $1,900 total. Still $100 short. Samuel sat in the jeweler's shop and wanted to scream. They'd done everything right. Worked themselves to breaking. Sacrificed everything they could sacrifice. And it still wasn't enough. Son, the jeweler said gently. You look about done in. I am. Samuel's voice was hollow. I don't know what else to do. I've sold everything. Worked every angle. And I'm still... He stopped. Looked down at his own left hand. At the simple gold band he'd worn for 12 years. The ring Sarah had placed there on their wedding day. His heart broke. But he pulled it off anyway. How much? He asked, setting it on the counter. The jeweler looked stricken. Samuel. How much? That ring's not worth. It's just gold. How much? Samuel's voice cracked. The jeweler was quiet. Then he picked up the ring, weighed it, and said, $100, because it's gold, and because you've been through enough. Samuel nodded. Couldn't speak. Just nodded. The jeweler counted out the money. I'll hold these, all of them. When you get back on your feet, come see me. We'll work something out. Samuel took the money, $2,000 exactly, earned through his labor, bought with his sacrifice. He rode to Cole's office for the last time, climbed those stairs, knocked on the door. Cole answered, looking smug. Samuel, cutting it close, aren't we? You've got... He checked his watch. 6 hours left. Tell me you're here to sign over the deed and save yourself the humiliation. I'm here to pay my debt. Samuel dropped the leather bag on the desk. $2,000. Earned through my own labor. Every cent accounted for. Count it. Cole's smile faltered. He opened the bag, counted the money slowly. His face went darker with each bill. How did you? I worked for it. Bought cattle, fattened them, sold them at profit. That's $1,200 of profit from my labor. Samuel's voice was steady despite the breaking inside him. The rest came from selling personal property, my wife's ring, my wife's jewelry, my own wedding ring. All sold, all converted to cash, all earned through sacrifice. This can't be, you couldn't have. Check the papers, check the sales receipts. Every dollar is legitimate. Every dollar came from my work or my sacrifice. Samuel met Cole's eyes. I paid. Now give me the deed. Cole's face was mottled with rage. He counted the money again, then again, looking for some technicality, some flaw, some way to refuse it. But there was nothing. Samuel had followed the letter of the agreement, had done the impossible. Fine. Cole spat the word. He pulled out papers, signed them with vicious strokes, and shoved them across the desk. The debt is paid. The ranch is yours. Again. Thank you. Samuel took the papers, started to leave. This isn't over, Cole said. His voice shook with fury. You think you've won. You've won nothing. You've destroyed yourself trying to beat me. Sold your wedding ring. Made your wife sacrifice hers. Worked yourself half to death. For what? For a piece of land that will never be more than a reminder of everything you've lost. Samuel stopped, turned, looked at Cole, really looked at him, and saw not a powerful enemy, but a broken man nursing an 18-year-old wound. I didn't win, Cole, Samuel said quietly. Neither of us won. Sarah's still dead. I'm still broken. You're still alone. We both lost the moment we let hate matter more than healing. He held up the papers. But I'm done losing. Done letting you make me feel like I don't deserve to survive. Done letting you turn my life into your revenge fantasy. You self-righteous. I forgive you. Samuel's voice was steady. For all of it. The debt, the threats, the cruelty. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I'm done carrying you around in my chest like poison. Cole's face went white. I don't want your forgiveness. I don't care what you want. Samuel smiled sadly. I'm giving it anyway. And then I'm walking away. And you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to figure out why winning didn't feel like winning. Why destroying me didn't fill whatever hole Sarah left in you. He walked out before Cole could respond, down the stairs, to his horse, and rode home. Clara was waiting on the porch. She stood as he dismounted, her hand bare, her face anxious. Did he? Samuel held up the papers. It's over. We're free. Clara let out a sob and fell into his arms. They held each other while the sun set, two people who'd fought impossible odds and somehow survived. I'm sorry about your ring, Samuel whispered, and Sarah's locket, and don't. Clara pulled back, touched his bare finger. We're alive. We're together. We're home. That's all that matters. I'll buy you a new ring. Eventually. She smiled. When we can afford it. When we've rebuilt. When we're not just surviving, but living. She laced her fingers through his. Until then, I don't need metal to know I'm married. I just need you. Samuel kissed her, then deep and grateful and full of promise. Kissed her like a man who'd been given a second chance and knew exactly how precious it was. They went inside together. To the house they'd fought for, the life they'd built, the future they'd earned through sacrifice and stubbornness, and refusing to let cruelty win. That night, lying in bed with Clara asleep beside him, Samuel thought about Sarah. About the life they'd built and the love they'd shared. About the fact that she was gone and he was still here, and somehow that was okay. "Thank you," he whispered to her memory, "for loving me, for teaching me how to love, for giving me a foundation strong enough to rebuild on." He touched Clara's shoulder gently. "I'll always love you, but I'm learning to love her too, and I think you'd like that." In his mind, he imagined Sarah smiling. Imagined her saying what she'd always said, that love doesn't run out, doesn't divide, only multiplies. That letting someone new in doesn't mean pushing the old love out. That hearts are bigger than people think. He fell asleep holding his wife, dreaming of futures, instead of pasts, of building, instead of mourning, of living, instead of merely surviving. 6 months later, the ranch was thriving again. Samuel had rebuilt the herd, replanted the fields, restored what had been stripped away. Clara's garden flourished. The house rang with laughter. They hosted church socials and invited neighbors, and slowly became part of the community instead of its scandal. And when Samuel finally saved enough to buy Clara a new ring, he took her to the jeweler who'd helped them. The kind man who'd held their sacrifices until they could reclaim them. "I'm here for my wife's ring," Samuel said. "And mine, and Sarah's locket if you'll sell it back." The jeweler smiled. "I've been holding them for you. Knew you'd be back." He pulled out a small box. "But I took the liberty of doing something. Hope you don't mind." He opened it. Inside was Clara's simple gold band. But now it held a small diamond, nothing extravagant but real. And beside it was a new ring entirely. Sarah's locket had been melted down and reformed into a woman's wedding ring, elegant and strong, with Clara's initials and Samuel's intertwined. "2 rings made from 3 sacrifices," the jeweler said. "Old love and new love melted together into something that honors both. If that's too presumptuous." "It's perfect." Samuel's voice broke. "It's thank you." He put the rings on Clara's finger right there in the shop. The simple band she'd sacrificed. The new ring forged from sacrifice transformed into beauty. Both of them together. Both of them hers. "Forever," he said. Just like he'd promised that dawn on the porch a lifetime ago. "Forever," Clara whispered back. And this time, forever didn't feel like a gamble, or a risk, or a desperate promise made in darkness. It felt like certainty, like choice, like coming home. They walked out of the jeweler's shop, hand in hand, 2 people who'd been rejected and broken, and told they weren't worth wanting now, walking through town with their heads high and their hearts full, and their future spread before them like an answered prayer. People still talked sometimes, still whispered about the mail-order bride who'd been sent back, and the widower who'd married her anyway. But Clara and Samuel didn't care anymore. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them judge. They'd survived worse than gossip. They'd survived cruelty and debt and impossible odds and their own doubts. They'd survived by refusing to give up, by choosing each other, by believing that second chances weren't luck. They were courage. And every night when they sat on their porch watching the sun set over land, they'd fought to keep Clara remembered, standing on that platform alone, watching her future walk away, thinking her story had ended. But it hadn't ended. It had just taken longer to begin than she'd expected. And when Samuel pulled her close and whispered, "I love you," Clara whispered back, "I know, and I love you too." Because some stories don't start with once upon a time. Some stories start with rejection and pain, and being told you're not enough. But if you're stubborn enough, brave enough, desperate enough to keep walking through the dark, sometimes you find someone else walking that same road. And together you build something neither of you could have built alone. Love. Home. Forever. And Clara Whitmore. Now, Clara Hargrove finally understood what it meant to be chosen, not in spite of her age or her past or her wounds, but because of everything she'd survived that made her exactly the woman Samuel needed and exactly the woman she'd always deserved to be. The world had said she was too old, too late, too past her worth. But standing there in Samuel's arms, Clara knew the truth. She wasn't too anything, she was exactly enough, and that was the greatest victory of all.